All right. Another night with Mr. Blows Your Minds of WeUpReport. As I give people time to get themselves up in here. Again, I told you we're going to try to get back into the game, try to be on daily. We know that the system is doing exactly what it needs to do because as we try to grow to get 3,000 after going on 11 years, it seems that if you do subscribe, you better go back and make sure and check because you remember that all you got to do if you should try to find this channel once again, spell MRBLOWURSMIND. They're going to ask you another question. Are you sure? Not that. Are you sure maybe I blows your mind? They're going to say what the one you want, and then they may show you to get back there. If not, just try to find an old video and try to find your way back because they are doing what they're doing. So tonight, I got a show that I put together that I want to talk about. And there's some significance because when this issue originally had arrived, and I seen it in the article, what I noticed is I didn't see too many people in the corner touch it, but I'm going to touch on it because, again, what we do over here at WeUpReport, we correlate the articles with history, along with life experience and the wisdom that one has from living. And we try to give that and try to make a completion of a meal, having a whole table set. So we try to have all the things that is necessary. So as we go ahead and finna go ahead and get up into this, I guess we better go ahead and start the show. As y'all come in, we're going to do this countdown. Let's get it.
Portions of the following program may be unsuitable for younger or more sensitive viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit education or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. This video was made for entertainment purposes and is transformative in nature.
And since the American white man has used his control over the press and over the textbooks and over all forms of media to make it appear that he has done us a favor by bringing us here and enslaving us, rewrite history or retell history. And since the white man can't dispute this truth, it's not hate to say that we were kidnapped and brought here, it's truth. It's not hate to say that we were Jim Crow, discriminated and segregated, it's truth. It's not hate to say that the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in this country, came up with a hypocritical desegregation decision 9 years ago, which they haven't enforced yet. That's not hate.
Remember, the enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives. Destroy the image, and you will break the enemy.
Welcome to another We Up Report Live with your host, Mr. Blows Your Minds. First and foremost, I want to say what's good to my day ones, my original day ones, my subscribers. What's good, fam? And my newly subscribers, unless you've been pulled by YouTube, YouTube have been taking my subscribers away as punishment for the things that I do. You don't like what I say, so when I try to move up, what they do is they start pulling you away. So if you have already subscribed, always go back and make sure and check because they will pull you away because I am the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. Passing by, you having to pass by due to the thumbnail. We always have a grand opening, having to go down the aisle, see something to make you feel some kind of way. Remember, the motto of my show is the truth. Don't need no partner. All right. So again, I want to make my hats off to a couple of brothers who decided to cash at me on the last show and one before. One is Mr. Spencer 0620. Again, once again, brother, I want to make sure that we give you that pubs and let you know that we appreciate you and WeUpReport. The other one was Envy Every Day. Another brother that gave something. We is on nothing more. We take our hats off to you, and we do appreciate for your contributions at any time that you feel necessary. That the most hated show, been in the game for 11 years and can't get 100 views, can't get 3,000 subscribers, not in the business for that, but you got to ask yourself that question. What is it that this brother over here be talking about that the system say, as I call it, the corner that the builders reject? What does he be talking about that other mothers, they do what they do, but this brother over here been on his neck the whole time. So anyway, as I get on with that introduction there, what I'm going to talk about tonight, let me go ahead and show you what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about how, as that thumbnail, wait a minute, maybe we need to take that off so you can see that bottom part on there. Take that off there for me, sir. There you go. Your history of offensive truth. Why? Let me say that again. Your history of offensive truth. Why? Why, Mr. Blows Your Mind? Why is our truth of our history offensive? Well, that's the thing we got to ask ourselves. Why is it that the things that those of us who are FBA, ADOS, Black Americans, Indigenous, Indigenous, all the above, the umbrella which I call the or Black Americans, what is it about our history that is very offensive to everybody in this country that is not a part of this lineage, of this bloodline? Why is it that when our story is being presented, people feel, in this case, some going to say discomfort. Some going to say, well, you guys are still holding on to that. Others might just be like, okay, that's over the past tense. Why you so nobody's a slave to this day. Okay, well, that being the case, then you have to ask yourself this question. Why does somebody feel the need that they got to make legislation and make it as part of the school curriculum? If we're going to have it, we got to, kind of fine tune it. We got to make it so it's like taste your taste buds, palatable to your taste. Has to have a certain taste that's acceptable, because if you give it to me in the raw form, back in the old school days, they used to give it when you was little, and if you had a cold or something, you had grandmama come in with a big ass spoon and put some of that castor oil in there and then shove that shit in your mouth. You know what I'm saying? Didn't taste like much, tastes awful, but it made you feel better. But as kids, you don't like that taste. So what you would like, so what they do sometimes when they see the big spoon come up with grandma or mama, they had to come with something else, put some sugar on it, put some honey on it. They had to kind of spruce it up a little bit. That's the same way they talking about with our history. They're talking about they're going to have to spruce it up. They're going to make it so it's palatable so that they feel a little comfortable in the way it's being dissertated. So you have to ask yourself, why do they need to do that? What's wrong with telling that part of the history when we know that is what part of the history of this country? And if it's so atrocious for you to hear it, what about those who lived it? Let me say that again. If it's so much of atrocity about the history in itself and the details and that which would be spoken about in history, if you feel uncomfortable, if you feel like something that you shouldn't be hearing, what about the people who lived it? Huh? Don't that make sense? If you can't take it from hearing it, what about the people who lived it and living it? Because, a lot of times people like to say that things have happened in the past, and if today and being the present, they always like to use 2022 and make it like what happened in 1960s or so long ago. And then what happened before 1960 and back is even much as like dinosaurs, right? But you got to always ask yourself, just because you're looking at them dates and times, and then you can see people in your family who's 80 years old, 90 years old, 100 years old, which means that they live in those times. But you don't look at grandma or grandpa like that. You don't look at maybe mama or daddy like that. You might have in your mind that that was a long time ago, and I feel the changes. Well, again, as I used the analogy in my last show about jumping rope, those of us who come up out of them hoods, that come up out those communities when we used to see the girls out there double dutching, right? The object of the game of double dutching is what? timing yourself to get in the rope so that you go with the flow. Well, that's what happens when each and every one of us is born. We come into this game being as the rope is being turned. And when we birth and when we out here, guess what happens? We got to learn to get in that rope and we get with the movement. Anytime you miss, skip, or beat, or get caught, you got to start all over again. But in this life, you just get beat up. Anytime you don't get enough game to know how things go down, you just always going to be one step behind. So what I like to do over here is WeUpReport is I like to tell these things so they give you some of this story of this history, because again, this is the most atrocious history in man's history to this day, at least in our country. Those who come from other places, we don't really know their story. So we only know our story, but our story is very offensive, and the fact that everybody seems to be trying to find a way to steal. So we're going to be talking about that. It's going to be a real long show. And I also got a special thing I may do tonight. Those who might want to call in, I'm going to put the call-in number tonight. I'm going to talk to Mr. Blow Your Mind tonight because I'm going to see if this thing works. I'm trying to get all these things together and do it. So let's do this, right? So that's what we're going to be going here. We're going to talk about that, your history and offensive truth. And why is your history offensive? So my thing is this. Some of us are parents. Some of us are grandparents. Some of us on the verge of maybe to be parents. And when you're a parent and you have children, it's your job to inculcate them, to give them the game so that when they step out them doors and when they go into this world, you don't make your children learn that the world loved them and that everybody gonna love them. We know that. You don't want to have to teach that, but you do have to kind of prepare them. So I remember when I seen this, because this is going to be the top of the, we're going to start here from the top. I remember seeing this young brother here and what he was saying with his daughter, because he believed what he heard or what his understanding was about CRT. And you can see that his heart is in the right place, but just because your heart in the right place means you may be getting fooled by something that somebody might be playing. Just in case you didn't see it, check this out. We'll be right back.
Daddy teaches you can be anything in this world that you want to be, right? Don't Daddy teach you that?
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you're black or white or any color.
Doesn't matter if you're black, white, brown, yellow, right?
Black.
And how we treat people is based on who they are and not what color they are.
And if they're nice and smart.
See, this is how children think right here. Critical race theory wants to end that. Not with my children. It's not gonna happen. My baby's gonna know that no matter what she wants to be in life, all she has to do is work hard and she can become that. But we need to stop CRT. Period. Point blank. Children do not see skin color, man. They love every.
Right? So that's a young brother that's out there, again, trying to get engaged to his daughter, got the right heart, saying that he ain't trying to teach his daughter to be handicapped, that he believed that CRT, right? Critical race theory has no place for his little girl that's going to grow up to be in the 21st century, knowing where we are right now. And there's many people who believe that most of the stuff that's happening, some of them believe that what didn't happen in the past is still not prevalent to this day, and that if I don't talk about certain things, and if certain things don't come to your understanding or become, let's say, knowledgeable to you, that just because it don't exist in your understanding mean it don't exist at all. Some people actually believe that. And so going back to what Malcolm said before I go forward, when Malcolm said in the beginning here, it's not hate, right? That it's not hate. Remember that when he came in, he talked about it's not hate? And remember to talk about how the control over the press, the textbooks, and all forms of media, how this country controls and manipulates that. I mean, we can just look at YouTube in itself and realize that it has this screening process to who it accepts and who it doesn't accept. A lot of people don't like to hear that. That's why they come in and they run up out of here, is because no one is going to talk about what really needs to be talked about. Everybody wants to have this kind of existence we see that's happening to you. So we're going to individualize it and say that you don't want nothing, you didn't aspire to nothing. But as CRT, as I'll show you what CRT is about, how do we have those who will come behind us and try to make them believe that certain things don't exist? It's just like what happened after Queen Elizabeth, her demise, and then you see the people who were either in mourning, and there was another side of people who were ridiculing, right? Again, it's just on your preference about how you see and how somebody fits with your understanding or your liking or your taste. But in this case, based on that family and what they have contribute to history and the despairs all around the world, sometimes you can inherit what your family has laid for you, even though you yourself may not personally have done something, but you've been, this is the, let's say, this is the, when they talk about insurance, this is what you have inherited from your family. And so it becomes the family business. And so if you, let's say you kept the family business going, guess what? You inherit that too. So this young brother here is thinking that if he says that, teach my daughter to work hard, to strive to be the best, and not to worry about what didn't happen, and that there's people out here who manipulating and believe that we need CRT, guess what? You got to ask yourself some questions, and we're going to get into that. Now that Malcolm also talking about that, that there was, he was talking about how in U.S. and how they had enslaved us and how they brought us here, and that it's not hate if we sit here and we talk about the things that happen to us. We talking about what happened to us as Black Americans, FBA, ADOS, indigenous, indigenous. Why is everybody offended when we talk about that? Even if you are a person that came off of immigration and your parents, and then you become born here, now you consider yourself a citizen, so forth. But as again, jumping the rope was already turned before you got here. Are you concerned about what happened, or that has no relevance to you? And those who do seem to be bitching and moaning and complaining, but maybe they know something. You ever, that's the thing about being older and wiser. You done seen things. You've been around many suns and many moons. So you know certain things that when somebody who's younger may not see it in that way. They may see it in the way that they interpret it, and then they don't understand it, all the machinations of institutions and how it try to keep us divided. Because if somebody like me come and holler at you, you think because maybe I'm a little older that I don't know the game, because you think, well, I'm out in the street, you know what I'm saying, whatever, but I was here before you was here. So there's certain things I can give you about certain obstacles that you're gonna maybe you can maneuver around because the game being given to you. So that's why it's important that in the Black corner that we have certain individuals who be out here to do this. Not everybody's going to do this. A lot of them like to give the fluff part of YouTube. They like to do the animosity and bickering back and forth and who he say, she say, but we don't got that kind of time. People are plotting and planning against us. We acting like we got all day and every day, when every day they sitting working towards the agenda that they all got for us. And as the next shows that I keep going from here on is going to keep inculcating on those who watching and listening over here, because they hate me over here. You don't know how much more time I'm going to be up over here. But the point is, I want to make sure that I laid this out so that if those who should find this, that I did do what I had to do. Now, so this young brother is trying to tell that, and that's fine. So again, they say that nobody willingly who loves their own is ever going to feed their children a snake. They're going to give them the best that they can. And the issue becomes, can the parents, by accident, not with intent, give their children the wrong information? And then how long does it take for you, as that person that your parents gave the wrong information, how long does it take in life for you to be like, I got to go back? Because a lot of stuff, I love my parents. They did the best that they can, but some of the shit that they gave me was not right. So now I got to go back, right? So let me show you this here by this woman here. She's going to give you something about of her family. And she is going to tell you, she got two sides to it. But I want you to make sure you listen to what she's saying. Listen to what she's saying. Check this out.
Fear that if you let blacks get control, everything would change. And there was no with some people, there was no idea that there would be any fairness or any democracy or anything, that there would be a decent, well-run city government, county government, whatever. It was like, if this happens, we're lost. And it was just a terrible fear. Southerners are like any other group of people. I mean, there are all kinds of folks that are included, and regardless of where they stood on integration or anything else, there were a lot of really good people who made wrong decisions and not so much did wrong things as failed to do right things. And when you look back on it, try to sort it out and figure out what could have been different. I think one of the things is that people felt a sense of being powerless. Maybe people who would have been willing to go along and go further and move forward sooner wouldn't have had any notion of any way that they could impact this, or that anything that they could personally do that would be helpful. Even as now, most of us live in a society that we think is far from perfect, and yet between now and 2 weeks from now, we're probably not going to do very much to change it. Partly because we have no sense of what we could do. And in the South, it was that way. Even people who were willing to take risk and move out were just not able to visualize what kinds of things could help. Or, how would you get enough people, if everybody that was willing to go to a certain step would move at once, then it would be accomplished. But we were all scattered out there. Nobody knew who else was willing to do what or make what changes. And there was not a lot of leadership. And leadership in the churches was, a lot of it was really forward-thinking and helpful. And then a lot of it was people who knew what the right thing to do was, but were terrified of taking any stand that would upset the congregation. There were people in the churches who wanted to keep the peace in the local church, in the congregation, and so they didn't want to do anything that might cause any kind of dissension. Politicians, even people who knew better, who would have been willing to go further personally or to have the state move forward, were always bound by fear of not getting reelected. And so really people who knew better just stuck with racism for political reasons, is what I think. It was, but a lot of it just in average citizens was just that people didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to help. There still are a lot of strange myths floating around in the South. There were a lot of strange tales from Reconstruction. There's an awful lot of fiction that floats about, and so I have no idea what kind of weird notions people had, but mostly I think it is of losing control. There was some higher level of trust, even of dishonest or corrupt white politicians, than of a black in some position of authority over you, for people who had grown up with these myths and fears, so that it was easier to stick with somebody that you might not have even cared for, who was white. I know that there were people who actually became physically ill every time there was any big desegregation news. You could just count on it. If you went to their house, you knew they were going to be in bed. It really just was, this was after I was a grown woman, and it was pretty startling to me to discover that there were people that had that kind of, that were bound in that way to racism. But of course there are people who are a lot worse that I didn't happen to know personally. For me, there's a lot of guilt that's involved, because growing up if you grow up and accept things the way they are, then you have to wonder, why did you accept all of this? Why did you not question more? Or, why didn't you think about all these things that were happening? And I don't know what the answer to that is. My great-grandfather was a really good man, but he was really a racist also. He, I guess, was influenced a lot by things that happened during Reconstruction. And he was not, and he was never a violent person, nor was he, it wasn't something that he spent a lot of time thinking about or talking about, but his views were, I remember mainly his never quite forgiving the Methodist Church for reuniting. There was a Southern Methodist Church for a while, and he didn't think they should have gone back in with the Northern Methodist Church. There were a lot of really good people who were and are racist, and I don't know how you explain or justify, or a lot of people wouldn't even accept the fact that you can be both, but in my belief you can. For instance, there were a lot of people who were willing to accept, when Emmett Till was murdered, there were people who were willing to accept the fact that this was, I don't remember if they said it was a prank or what, but I mean there were stories that this didn't really happen before they found the body, and there were people who were willing to accept that. There were the same kind of attitude was with almost everything, where there was not an immediate finding of a body. There was always this thing, this is something somebody's made up, just a lot of denial. A lot of people who didn't want to believe that this sort of thing would happen, and would refuse to accept the fact that it was happening. I think there were a lot of people who did think it would be stopped, who never thought the change would actually happen, even after it was happening. And I think if there had not been that attitude, if people had known the change was going to happen anyhow, maybe it would have been faster. Maybe the holding the line would not have been so long and painful. But I think that part of the reason that there was not more change is just that people never did accept it as the reality of the day.
Hey, you sitting here watching the video. Why you sitting there? Put your hand on that like button, click it, thumbs it up, share this video, comment. You can like or dislike it. We don't care about that. And also, if you ain't over here and subscribe, what you waiting on? Get yourself over there and subscribe to get on up to WeUpReport, so you can stay up, because we're going to keep you up. That's how you help keep this channel going. You can also do some monetary donations. We'll tell you about that later. But right now, wake yourself up, like, share, and comment. And don't forget, when you subscribe on that button, hit that put all notifications. You know how YouTube get down.
You know I need some money, gotta get the money, cause I need some cash. Hey, come on, gotta get it. You know I need the money, gotta get the money, cause I need some cash. Hey, come on, gotta get it.
So we are back, and so that was this woman here was telling you the history of her own family, and saying how that in the day when she was talking about, she was saying there was a real fear that everything would change if blacks got in control. She said there would be no fairness or democracy. Let me say this again. This woman who I just got through playing, that you got to see, she was talking about her family, and she was telling you back in the time when she was coming up. She said there was a real fear that everything would change if blacks got in control. Now, isn't that something? Why is there fear that if blacks get in some kind of control, that all hell would break loose for the people who are in opposition, who, again, we lived under your rule. So if we get in some kind of rule, there's a big fear. What is that fear? She said there wouldn't be no fairness. There would be no democracy. So from their position, they look at it as, well, they are fair, square dealing, and we have democracy with them. So what would make you think that what we learned from under you would not be the same subscription we would give in return? Or is it maybe the fact that the fear is what I've done to you? Or matter of fact, there's an old saying that I hate you more when I know you done did something to me. I hate you more because you know that I've done you wrong. So maybe in the sense here, maybe your fear is because what you've been doing and what you have been doing and what you perpetuate and continue to keep doing, even though everybody admits or won't admit and say there's something in the past, that if we should ever get in power, we're going to do unto you what you've done to us. Right? So sometimes these things are telling in just what they be saying. And then the fact of saying that a well-run government, as if black people can't run a well government. You know, there's a lot of people that come to this country, and the way the stigmatization that somehow that's part of the criteria when you come here for immigration, is that part of the test you might take. You have to say black people are lazy, black people don't want nothing. I mean, you got to check them boxes to get 100 on the score, because it seems like, I'm not saying all, I'm not all, but the way some of the attitudes that you see sometimes, that you see on some of these videos, people seem to have that kind of feeling. And it's like, how is it that people who ain't never been around us, that when they come around us, they have such a negative way of looking at us? And it's like, who's spreading this lie? So I maybe come with some kind of assumption that maybe when they take these tests, that somewhere on the test, in order for you to pass, you got to check the box and say, black Americans lazy. Black Americans don't like to work. Black Americans are stupid. All these, maybe they're checking that. Maybe you have to sit down and do an interview with somebody. If they willing to do that, put themselves on the line, that they're going to get deported, but they're not. But anyway, so with that being said, she was saying that. So just imagine, they said that black people can't well run a government. So I guess some people would take this, let's say Haiti. Let's take Haiti for an example. And people would think that, well, Africa, I guess you could say Africa too. These places, Africa being the continent, Haiti being the country, right? And it is solely by, let's say, by its appearance, it looked like black folks running it. So you would think that with black folks running it, that it should be running optimal because black people control it. But we know that's like back in the days in the Western, those would be fronts and props, right? You think that's a little town, but it's like some Hollywood shit where they got the shit propped up. So when you see in these countries black folks looking like they the president and they running shit, technically they just the puppets because there's somebody else behind them pulling the damn string. Because does it not make no sense to you when you think about how is it that black folks running these places and can't get right? In life can't get right. Some of them act like they can't get right. Like, wait a minute, black Americans sitting in this place that we call the United States, being surrounded by everybody. We may be a handful of people in there in politics, and we know we fighting against everybody else, so it's harder to get some of the crumbs. So it seems crazy to us, at least I'm speaking on behalf of us, it seems crazy to us that a country that is all black, a continent all black, and can't get right. So either you can't get right or there must be another dynamic in there that people don't want to really admit, which we already kind of know, right? So here's this woman saying the same thing. Like she making her assessment that if black Americans got in control of the government and run this place, that we couldn't run it. But I think we could run it and run it better than all of you. But nobody wants to see that. I don't think nobody wants to see black Americans, FBA, ADOS, entitled indigenous, run nothing the way we see it, because what's good for the goose is going to be good for the gander, and I think everybody fears that. So I think that's why it's all a big cahoons about what they do. So she also talked about how if this happened, we were lost. She said, if it should ever be in the time that black people get in a position of control, white people feel like they lost. They're going to lose. They're terrified. There was a fear. And she was saying that there was really good people who were just, in her eyes, her summation was they just made wrong decisions. Let me say that again. She said really good people who were racist, these were racist people, who they just made some wrong decisions in life, right? They just failed to do the right things. At whose expense, right? We who've been here for generations upon generation upon generations under what she said, right? Wrong decisions to do the wrong things. Well, we've been the beneficiaries of those wrong decisions. We've been, again, as Malcolm X has said, we didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us, right? So she is really kind of telling you the time of when they were saying the change was happening, the change. So she said they were feeling powerless. She knew that even though that this country was at the turmoil that it has been, it's not perfect, but as long as it was in their favor, as long as it's in their favor, things could work out and get better. That's what they believed. And so the change was coming. So they would say a lot of them were bound by their politicians, even though that they knew that these was dudes, that these people that was politicians were bad and it was not really good politicians, but they were bound by the fact that they had to keep reelecting them because they didn't want us in there. Let me say that again. They are bound by, even though a politician may be even good to them, but as long as it keep us out of there, they would keep reelecting them. Now, I didn't say that. You heard her say that if you were paying attention, right? And so they would get stuck with somebody, even if they said this person was his racism for in his politics, but he still represented them, right? So we as Black Americans, touching this ADOS, FBA, Black Americans, I say all the above, just like in this young brother here talking about CRT. When you look at CRT and what they talk about what CRT is, right? Because, you know, a lot of times you heard people talk about CRT, but nobody never really got into what is CRT. But we're going to get into that because, you know, this story is about your history with its offensive truth. Why is your history always the offensive truth and nobody wants to really hear it? And everybody want to act like it's gone in the past and that whatever's affecting you today is only because of your lack there of your own individual efforts. And there's a lot of our own people feel the same way. And so she was like, as long as whites was over blacks, they felt a sense of control. Let me say that again. This woman that I just played for you to hear what she said of a message that she was talking about, the change was coming. Back in her time, she said that as long as whites were over blacks, they felt a sense of control. They said even if the person that was leading was a racist, it was there for their favor. She even said there were people that were getting sick that couldn't get out of bed when they knew that the change was happening, when the stuff that what our ancestors were doing, some of them are still living, that was fighting in the 60s and trying to get them rights and protesting, and they see the change happening. They said people were literally sick, knowing that this change was coming. Now, why are you talking about this, Mr. Blunt? What does this got to do with, you know how, if you knew over here, you don't know, but if you've been over here, you know how we work over here. You know how we get down over here and we report. Right? So with that being said, so here's somebody who's giving you something that the average person is not going to tell you. They run and hide when it comes to talking about this kind of conversation because there's a guilt, there's a shame. But again, as I say, What guilt or shame do you have when I'm living it? And you want it to magically go away, or like you say that things have changed, but ask me, ask some of our people. I remember when Barack Obama sat there and told, when he was talking about, he was like, well, if you ask the people in the 50s and the 50s and the 40s and that, they'll tell you it was changed. Of course it was changed. Well, damn, if you came off a plantation and then they let you off a plantation and then they make them restrict that you can't really do nothing and stay this, and then you go a whole 100 years and then you talk about civil rights, but most people don't even really know what civil rights is. They think they know what civil rights. You really don't know what civil rights mean. It's just really saying they can't discriminate you in public and let you vote. That's really what it boiled down to. You know, there's nothing else with that. That was always the wrong move. It's never been about civil rights. It's about human rights. But we'll move on anyway. So here's this woman who's telling you how they were feeling, and they were feeling sick about making the changes because they see the changes happening. And there was a fear that if black people ever get in power, that somehow that you would do the things that you did to them, and that like they would keep somebody, even though they was racist, in the position as long as it kept you at bay. So you say, well, why are you talking about that, Mr. Berlin? What is the point to that? Well, it's because I remember when Ron Desantis, not too long ago, again, I was out for those several months, getting myself back into the game, but I didn't see nobody really cover it. And I'm saying Ron DeSantis, right? He's really gonna be the runner-up. If Trump don't get in, this is gonna be the cat we might have to deal with. But remember what he tried to pull. Remember, he has his whole campaign about trying to stop the Woke Act. Well, let me go ahead and talk about it. I ain't gonna say no more about it. Let me go ahead and show you right here. We'll be right back. Check this out. All right, so this is the article that's about Florida bill to shield people from feeling discomfort over historic actions by their race, nationality, or gender approved by Senate committee. Let me say this one more again. Florida bill to shield people from feeling discomfort over historic actions by their race, nationality, or gender approved by Senate committee. Now, this article had came out earlier this year in January 20th. But again, at that time, I had been out getting back, trying to get myself back into there. It took me, those who know, about 4 or 5 months. But I was out watching the corner, watching a lot of my comrades who do the things that we do as part of the black media. And the story kind of went under the radar. And I was kind of surprised because based on what they're talking about, this is specifically dealing with we, Black Americans, FBA, ADOS, Indigenous, Indigenous, Moors, the umbrella what I call Black Americans. And I didn't see many people cover this. I don't know if it's because they didn't see it or they chose not to do it. But let me go ahead and let me tell you what this is all about. Now, this is a bill that is being backed by, they say, Ron DeSantis, right? See that individual you see on your screen there. And this bill was put for the Florida public schools and private businesses because they, according as you just heard me say, that this bill is trying to block, as I go on more about it, about the discomfort or guilt that could be by people's race, in particular, we know who we're talking about, sex, national origin, and they receive what they say their first approval by the Senate Education Committee. Right? That's who they say that who end up approving this. And it kind of made this news, and again, I can understand why some people did not go into it. But you know that when you talk about Ron DeSantis, who is like probably not the second in line next to, okay, if there's Donald Trump that's going to run for the Republican, if they don't get him not to be a front runner, they say Mike Pence is second, and then there's Ron DeSantis. And there's like 24 more behind that. But he being in the position as third, and if Donald Trump ain't there, move him to second. And based on some of the things that he seems to be advocating for, this does kind of sound like dog whistling to a certain demographics. Follow what I'm saying? This is a dog whistle of some of the things he had talked about earlier, some of the things, but we'll go into that. But this seems to be like a dog whistle for his campaign for those who can't get the real thing, like say having Coke and Diet Coke. Some people take Diet Coke. Other people, if it ain't Coke, they're going to get another brand. But in this case, they can't get the Coke, which would probably be Trump. Then who would be the Diet Coke as the Republican that would come in and be just as taste, or would be another preference for them? So in this case, he may be setting himself up, and by saying these type of things, he had talked about CRT, which we'll get into that. But also he's making this referring to CRT, right? Critical race theory. And which they announced and proposed legislation. And this was at a media event back in December, which would have been in 2021 at this particular time. And when it was proposed by law, and it was said to help keep CRT out of schools and out of the workplace. Let me say this again. This legislation, this bill that they were trying to push and got the committee to go along with, this bill purpose is to be proposed through law and help to keep CRT out of schools and out of the workplace. And the wording that they use is code word. Let's put it this way. The code word that they use is called state-sanctioned racism. Let me say that one more again. The term, if you should hear somebody ever say state-sanctioned racism, is pertaining to CRT and anything that has to do with what they're going to be talking about, which we'll get into as I get more into what was going on in here. And they also say now state-sanctioned racism will be about the school part. And then the other aspect of what CRT does in their eyes is that it brings a hostile work environment. Okay? These are the key things: state-sanctioned racism and hostile work environment. And so we're going to get into this as I break this down. Now, this legislation, what they say, will prohibit individuals from making people feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any forms of psychological distress on account of his or her race. They say also color, sex, or national origin. Let me say this again. This legislation and this bill that they're trying to propose as at first phase has gone through the Senate committee. All right, so that's their little trick they're going to do from now on, right? So one of them must be sitting up in here. That's their little trick now. So they over here, and what they're going to do is they're going to make sure, because see, we're not supposed to be watching them. We're not supposed to be watching none of this stuff. So what they do is, as long as I was over here, if I'm talking about he say, she say, if I talk about all the nonsense of hip hop and all that, that's fine. But don't talk about putting the light in the darkness of what is being hidden so that they don't want you to see it. So that's what they would do. What somebody is in here doing. And if that's what you get paid to do, that's how you make your money, that's fine. That don't hurt me at all. But the point is you that got to be careful what you do. So it's kind of funny that they do what they do, but you ain't supposed to say nothing what they doing. You were just supposed to take it. Now, think about that. What kind of psychological individual are you, or as a people, that you do all these things to deprive and make these one other people have to be a certain way, and then try to propagandize that to the world to make them be this so that you can justify what you try to do. It's kind of like the tortoise and the hare, as I was talking about the other show. The hare wasted so much damn time trying to you know, I mean, he go to sleep, he outrun the turtle, go to sleep. He could just ran and out the race. No, he want to tamper with he want to divert the turn, the signs, and he want to do all these things so that instead of just running the damn race. Well, that's how they are. They know that's who they are. But you mad at me because I decided that I would like to make sure that y'all put this out as public consumption for media, news, but we're not supposed to have the discussion to bring awareness to the people. So anyway, I will see what this do again, right? So let me just go to the CRT with the critical. I'm going to tell you what they say in the law book about CRT. CRT is understanding law and legal institutions with race as a defining aspect of both. Let me say that again. CRT is understanding law and legal institutions with race as a defining aspect of both. Okay? So CRT got something to do with law and the legal institutions. That's what CRT got to do with. Not so much pertaining to history. History was a cloak what they use. Now, critical race theory is an outgrowth of that came from the civil rights movement, came from the critical legal studies as well. And what it was doing, it was asserting that the United States law is based on racial distinctions, many of which were created by law. Let me say that again. CRT, known as critical race theory, is an outgrowth of the civil rights movement and critical legal studies, asserting that U.S. laws is based on racial distinction, which many were created by law. Now, isn't that funny that CRT says that, and here it is, Ron Desantis is trying to establish something with law to make a distinction, and this distinction is discriminatory because it's saying specifically that I want to tamper, restrict, and retool Black American history, indigenous, indigenous, Moors, FBA, ADOS history. Why do you need to do that? That's the question. Why do you need to do that? So here he is basically showing you what CRT is, and that law perpetuates a power structure privileging some racial identities and cultures over others. Let me say that again. That law perpetuates a power structure privileging some racial identities and cultures over others. Isn't that what he's trying to do when he's trying to come up with this? Think about this. Stop Woke. The Stop Woke Act. I'm going to talk about that again more in here. Okay? But the point is privileging some identities and cultures over others. Those people who don't believe that there's still racism, white supremacy, and all that stuff, it's not so much as just seeing an individual and being hateful. It's structured in the way the laws and the institutions operate so that when we are part of that, it's a rigged game. It's already rigged against us. But because you don't know that, not saying everybody, but I'm just saying those who don't know, then you don't even understand you're already coming into a rigged game. But let me show you something. Let's do this, and we'll do more about the CRT, because the CRT, okay, when they talk about race as a social category, everybody know that's a vague category. When I say Black, a lot of people think I'm talking about skin color. I'm not talking about those damn skin color. Well, you think you're a crayon or something? Shit, we've been Black before there was Crayola. Black existed before there was a crayon. But those are the people who want to be very technical and want to be, call themselves being like talking about law. But then if you understand CRT, then you know that even in that, again, I did a video not too long ago talking about standard of civilization. Did you understand what standard of civilization? So it don't matter about no treaties they done with you. They always got a back end clause, not dealing with you. Okay? And so these vague categories about dealing with race as a social category based on differences among ancestry, right? That's what FBA, ADOS, indigenous, we're trying to do establish to this day. The game is already rigged in that way, but everybody don't want us to formulate and say we basing our ancestry, our lineage. It's making us become one. Everybody else who's been eating off of us, eating off our culture, eating off all our talent. Now that we're trying to say, hey, we want to do this and be on our own, do you not know that black power, when they say black power, that's really like when they were trying to say black identity extremists, you're being extremist because you say black power. Yes, they try to put that militant part in there, but that's not what black power is. You don't see that in this day. It's about you trying to be self-determined, self-identified, being your own, building for your own. That's extreme. Can you think about what I'm saying? Just like there's a problem out here with everybody, not everybody, but there's people out here who got a problem because everybody don't feel the same way about what happened over there in England with the Queen, that Queen Elizabeth. They want, because we mourning, you need to mourn. Ain't that something? I don't have to mourn because you mourning, because I may get a different feeling. Matter of fact, it's like in your family sometimes, there's situations where you have relationships. Let's say you have a child with somebody and then y'all don't work out with each other, but you still kind of cordial with that person. But let's say the mother or the father of the other person, you and that person got bad blood, but the child don't know that. So the child talks to you about certain things about that individual. You being cordial, you don't say the things that you really want to say, because why? You don't want to bring dissension and make the child making a choice. You leave them in their unconditional state to love who they love. But you and that other person know there's bad blood between you. So later on, say one of the person dies, and then you say, well, I don't see it the same way that the way you see it. I can sympathize how you feel about that person, but me and that person had bad blood, and I don't feel the same way. That's the same thing with this Queen Elizabeth situation. But they feel the need that if we mourn, you supposed to mourn. That still sounds like some slave mentality. That's still like some colonization. Niggas, we own you. You're still our slave. I cry, you cry. You right? That's what they're saying. That's how they do. So in this case of this CRT, race as a matter of law, right? Race as a matter of law. Many people here tell, well, race is nothing but a construct. But in this country, in the United States, intertwined in that institution of that law, race is a matter of law. And it has the particular meaning only here in the United States. Now, all them other people that sit there tell you, oh, you need to have correction status and you need to be in your proper persona. If you've been here from the, again, Black Americans, Indigenous, FBA, ADOS don't have no immigration papers. We ain't immigrants. We've been here before they was even called the United States. You get what I'm saying? So if anybody understand the game here, it's we understand the game. Everybody else got paper. Oh, song, she's got papers. Right? But anyway, you got papers. You know how many y'all got papers and shit, right? But in this case, we don't got no papers. So we've been here from the beginning. So this whole stuff, when it was instituted, it never had us in mind. And so everybody that come here, whatever thing that they insinuate as to what they gave really comes from what they supposedly gave to us. But they ain't really gave us nothing. It's just really, again, a prop. It ain't really gave you nothing. So the CRT also arises from the historical use of race and the maltreatment of people perceived as racially inferior to others. Who was that? Who was that? That CRT arises from the historical use of race and the maltreatment of people perceived as racially inferior. That's only Black Americans, Indigenous, ADS, FBA, ADOS. This was only between, it was us and them, nobody else, right? And then race was once defined by blood or lineage, which we are trying to Voltron back into. There's so many people having so many problems. Have you ever noticed that people from other places come here and want to debate you and tell you that why you guys are trying to be divisive? Why we can't all be African? Oh, we could be African for the beneficial of you, but when it comes to us, right? When it comes to us, okay, it's like let's say, for instance, if you lived in a let's say a halfway house. Let's say what do they call them homes with children and adopted. Let's say you one of them. And so you're the oldest. You've been there from the beginning, from the first time. You're the first kid they got. And every kid that they brought in there, Every kid coming there, they get new clothes, they get a brand new room, they're getting a lot of attention and care. You've been there for a while. Now you starting to help out. But now they get 5 kids, 10 kids, 15 kids, 20 kids. Guess what happens? You get pushed down the line. You ain't getting no attention. You ain't even getting none of the new stuff. You watching everybody else eat. You got to watch them eat first before you get to eat. And now after how long can you keep taking that before you say, wait a minute? Everything that you got and the way you built this whole structure started with me. And this is what you treat me as? And we ain't supposed to say nothing. And we supposed to just say, it's all good. Just say here, take it. You guys didn't want nothing anyway, right? So that's what everybody's doing. Everybody's coming in to stick their flag in our moon. So my thing is, your history is offensive to whom? And why is it that way? Okay? So anyway, let me go ahead to this next part because they're probably going to make it not play. But anyway, let's do it and check this out. So they said that, again, this bill is to prohibit employers from training, to give instructions, spouses, or promote any advance or inculcate compels the individual to believe, right? Belief that an individual bears responsibility for. So this, what they say is CRT, and CRT, as we'll get into more, and what is CRT and what it pertains to is about history, right? And so in this history, as we talked about at the beginning, as I will show you once again, what are we talking about here, right? Your history of offenses, your history of offensive truth. Why? Your history of offensive truth. Why is our history so offensive? What is it about our history that we had to endure, which we carried the burden of, and we had to just work through the muck and mire? Because the psychosis that many of our people say we have to have is, don't focus on what doesn't happen, keep working your way out of it. I'm not here to tell you not to do that. But that doesn't mean that when it's something that is going and this is a constant working towards you, that we don't address none of it. Even if it's not from a government, it's not being legislatively, but it is about awakening and making our people be aware of the things that are happening. And a lot of people are not liking this. And this here proves the fact that they don't like it. Correct? So again, as we say, your history of offensive truth. Why is our history so offensive to not just them, but even others who have invaded and come here and now are also finding ways, as they say, to glean, to tether into, as they said, the doppelganger, taking your place and becoming you. So there's a lot at work behind the scenes that a lot of us is not even paying attention, nor we even recognize, because we like the kumbaya, we like the holding everybody's hands and sing old Negro spirituals. And while you're doing that, they're taking out the air of your tires, they're siphoning out the gas out your car. They done took the Cadillac converter from up under your vehicle. Somebody done told your batteries. Somebody done took all your lights out your headlights. So you think you see the shell of the vehicle, mean you think you got a car, until the minute you think you starting to drive and find out that your car don't function at all. But it'll be too late when you get in there, because you could be running from danger. So anyway, what they said that they want the instructors who would be the ones that would be, again, as they talked about, right? What they say again? They talk about the one who would be espousing or promoting, advancing, inculcating, and compel, right? That who would instruct that. They said this bill would have a way to put a bridle, to harness it, to guide it, so that when it would be able to address topics of sexism or slavery or racial oppression or racial segregation or racial discrimination, but under age appropriation. If they did allow, and this bill will allow for certain people of a certain age, if they were to address the topic, would be able to address the topic, Sexism would be one, slavery could be another, racial oppression could be another, racial segregation, racial discrimination, but it would have to be an age-appropriate manner. And so, however, when they talk more about this bill, they talk about the fact that the classroom instructions and curriculum may not be used to indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular point of view inconsistent with the principles of this subsection or state academic standard. Let me say this one more again. They say the instructor, there's certain ways if he is to be addressed by students in this particular part about school under a certain age group, like we've seen in Texas where they said they was trying to start them from kindergarten to like second or third grade, I think it was. And they said under the age appropriateness that what we will set the standard for to start teaching this, but the way that it would only be taught, it would say that it would be structured in such a way that would be fitting for them. Now listen to the words that they say. Again, classroom instructions and curriculums may not be used to indoctrinate. So prior to y'all now feeling that the history of the truth, right? Once again, right? The truth, right? Your history of offensive truth. Now that your history of offensive truth is starting to reveal itself, if we start telling about that, you're worried about somehow now somebody's going to be indoctrinated. Persuade students to a particular point of view. They say which is inconsistent with the principle of the subsection of the state academics. So who set these principles for the state academic standards? And how is it before when we had to learn under what you were giving? Was that considered to be indoctrination? Was we being persuaded to a particular point of view? Was it inconsistent with the principles of our existence as individuals, and as you say, individual? Freedom of individual. Was each and every one of us indoctrinated through class instructions, through the curriculum? Were we persuaded to see way of life from the perspective of which you've seen it? Right? So now that the shoe is starting to come on the other foot, seem like somebody is making sure there are parameters and structures and by law so that it cannot be a full course meal on what it seems to be about us as Black Americans and the history. Okay? So they talked to a Democratic senator named Shervin Jones, and according to what he said in this article, but I looked up the committee and I didn't see him in there. Now, I don't know why they try to say he was the committee's vice chair, but according, if you go in there yourself and look at that committee, the Senate committee in Florida, you will not see no Shervin Jones. But he's in this article, and he says it's only black member. It's only black member. The only black member I seen in there was a woman who named that had a similarity of a person who could be cut from the cloth. But I looked at her very well, and I can't really call it. But I do know I didn't see this individual in there unless he just recently been lifted off the board, and that's possible because according to what they say, it is the governor who is the one who appoints those that sit in there. So we can understand why that the Senate committee approved, because it was governor appointed by the sitting governor. So I guess you could get one because you want to set them in place, correct? So anyway, according to Shervin Jones, at this particular time in January, I guess he was the only black member, and he had some opposition to it. He said that this bill has an attempt to revise history, revise black history to keep, as he says, white people from feeling uncomfortable. He said there isn't even a ban on critical race theory. This is a ban on black history. Let me say this again. According to Sherwin Jones in this article says, this isn't even a ban on critical race theory. This is a ban on black history. He said they are talking about not wanting white people to feel uncomfortable. He said, let's talk about being uncomfortable. And goes into relates to how he himself and his lineage and where he come from. But I found something very interesting on that brother, but I won't expose him at this moment. But that's why I said his background, his lineage. I didn't associate him with ours. You understand? So, subjugating individuals. Hey, you sitting here watching the video. Why you sitting there? Put your hand on that like button, click it, thumbs it up, share this video, comment. You can like or dislike it. We don't care about that. And also, if you ain't over here and subscribe, what you waiting on? Get yourself on there and subscribe to get on up to WeUpReport. So you can stay up because we're going to keep you up. That's how you help keep this channel going. You can also do some monetary donations. We'll tell you about that later. But right now, wake yourself up, like, share, and comment. And don't forget, when you subscribe on that button, hit that put all notifications. You know how YouTube get down.
You know I need some money, gotta get the money, cause I need some cash. Hey, come on, gotta get it. You know I need the money, gotta get the money, cause I need some cash. Hey, come on, gotta get it.
Subjugating individuals to specified concepts. Because let me show you something also too. Let me show you this other thing that they got in here, because they do got something else in here. They also, to show you what the bill is, I went and got the bill just in case, because you know a lot of times people, they be talking about stuff, but they won't actually go get it. What we do over here, WeUpReport, that's exactly what we say, the report. We give you what's out there. We don't make up nothing. So when I'm speaking, I'm not speaking on my own volition. I'm not making up my own things. I'm giving you what's been put out there. And I'm just bringing it to you from the perspective of the way we see it, our understanding. Correct? So that is the bill right in front of you, called the CSHB 7 Individual Freedom Bill that was proposed and presented, right, by Desantis, right? Remember, this guy here, because he is running for president. And so, if he's saying this, is he speaking twofold? I want you to be able to pick up on the fact that he might be speaking connotatively. Right? So accordingly, this individual freedom, as you see on your screen there, individual freedom, provides that subsection or subjection individuals to specified concepts. Subjecting individual to specified concept. What you mean subjugating or subjecting? See, they feel like you're subjecting them by making them have to hear what they don't want to hear, what they know, but they don't want to be told to be reminded of. Because why? They said it makes them feel discomfort, and we're going to get about that too, right? So these specified concepts, the history, this here is specified. Now listen to what I want you, before I go on, let me give you this and then I'll go to my breakdown. How about that? So the individual freedom provides that subjecting individual to specified concepts under certain circumstances constitute discrimination based on race, color, sex, or national origin. Revising requirements for required instructions on the history of African Americans. requiring the department to prepare and offer certain standards and curriculums, authorizing the department to seek input from a specified organization for certain purposes, prohibits instructional materials, reviewers from recommending instructional materials that contains any matter that contradicts certain principles, requires DOE to review school district professional development systems for compliance with certain provisions of law. Okay? Now, we talked about subjugating individuals to specified concepts. What is these specified concepts? About Black American history. As Sherman Jones said, this isn't about CRT. This is about curtailing. This is about tweaking. This is about, like they said earlier when they was talking about in Texas, when they were talking about involuntary relocation. Instead of having slavery of what it was, we're going to have to soften it, because why? Slavery is going to teach the later generations what it really was. So we don't want to be looking bad in the eyes of the new ones, because as they know, as we go later on in this show, you going to see why they want that is because they know that the sundial is getting smaller. You know how sundial, for those you know the sundial, you turn the sand, it's full on one end, and then you turn it over and then let all the sand come to the other side. Well, this one is getting lower and lower and lower and lower. So for looking for future references, what they are doing now is trying to put things in its place through using the institutions, and saying we need to structure this through state laws so that we can curtail, so that these things that will be taught, we have some input as to what you're getting, as if you haven't already been doing that. And the funny part is, when we think about that, wasn't they saying that they said not to indoctrinate, to have a point of view? But what have we, and many of the generations who have already gone to school and gone out of school, what's in our mindset? Who indoctrinated us? Who got us looking a certain way, pretending to the only way there was no laws that was curtailing when it was full reigns on the other end. There was no curtailing it. It's full as we see it, and this is what it is. Now that the shoe is becoming to be on the other foot, you know, they say what's good for the goose ain't good for the gander. So they said under certain circumstances, the certain circumstances is in school and employment. So that means the children are getting it at school, and the mama and daddy, if they got a job, they're being taught as well. And they said, we're not trying to do that. We're going to make this in Florida. We're going to make this legislation that this is not part of that. And so they say, based on the fact that you want to teach this African American history and make this by law and by the state, they said this constitutes discrimination. Oh, let me say this again. I mean, have full reign. No interference. Nobody saying put it in legislation to say, well, we can't tell them all this because they're going to make them only look at us and only honor us and revere us and make them only be white, right? But no, that was fine. Now that it's time that there's a demand to say, okay, we need to have about our history so that our children can learn and be about it. Well, we say, wait, hey, a minute, hold on, wait a minute. So you want us to do and tell these children that what happened to you guys, and the reason why they're in these conditions, and the reason why things don't work for them, and why it seems like the law is kind of skewed, is because of the past of what had happened is still kind of prevalent to this day. Yeah, why not? I know why not, but I'm just saying, why not, right? Why not? So they want to revise requirements for required instruction. What revised requirement for required instruction? So what they're saying is they want to tailor how the person who will be the teacher, the instructor, the historian, or whoever it is, under these guidelines and the way we see it and the softening that we want to give it to you, that this must be the only way it can be given, otherwise it cannot be taught. They act like they finna come in and teach porno and everything. I mean, really? I mean, again, what is today's show based on? Your history of offensive truth. Your history of offensive truth. Your history, Black Americans, ADOS, FBA, autochthonous, indigenous. Your history is so offensive. It's offensive. The offensive truth to it. We can't take that. We cannot take that. Saying discomfort. When you saying somebody is discomfort, what are you saying? They uneasied, anxiety, troubled, distress, disadvantage, handicap, problem, burden, guilt. What is guilt? To have remorse, to have regret, to have contrition, blame, compunction. But yet, we've been told that this country has apologized to us for this history that seems to be so offensive. Well, I'm going to show you that ain't never been done. You have seen an act. You have heard, as Malcolm said, rewriting. But really, what is it was said and what actually was done? Because why? We don't teach you that no way. And so now that we are using these venues to, some of us, to have these dialogues, to take the things that they say and put it and present it. Some people don't like it. They don't like the fact that we're sitting here and again, the way that they defended against saying becoming awake, they say woke. And they say stop wokeness. Correct? They were talking about stop wokeness. So they had a campaign to stop wokeness. Why would a person want you to stay asleep? Ask yourself, why would somebody want you to stay asleep? If you stay asleep, I can beat you all day long. I can do all kind of things while you sleep. As long as you in that comatose state, in that dreamlike state, then the things that I have been doing that you have not known I've been doing and been getting away with comes to cease if you wake up. So if you wake up, it's easier to win a race when you have no competition, when you're only one. It's like saying, when you watch old cartoons, at least back in the days when we were coming up, you would see like a rabbit was like a rabbit and the turtle. They always had it, the rabbit and the turtle. Let's say it was Bugs Bunny and a turtle. The rabbit could have already won the damn race. But he spent so much time trying to tie his shoe, trying to make holes, sleeping, not running, doing all these things. Now, look how I'm using this analogy. Pick up on it. Trying to tie your shoe, trying to trip you up, trying to turn the route so you're going around. But if he would have just ran his race, he might have just won naturally. He didn't need to do all that. But since he wasted so much time on trying to keep you from running the race, guess what done happened now? The turtle has a possibility now win the race. And all those obstacles and all those things that he done are somehow backfiring. He's seeing that the things that he laid, that he called himself prohibiting us, seem to be now some of the, what they say, landmines that's set for your own damn self. But, So now you got to go in and you want to tinker and tool with stuff. But see, the thing is, this didn't pass, y'all. That's the other thing too. It didn't pass because a judge came and stopped it in Florida. But that don't mean that they're not gonna come back and try again. If it may not be in Florida, it may be somewhere else, right? It may be somewhere else. You may think that it was supposed to go there, but that don't necessarily mean it's going to come there. But if it go to California, right, go to New York, it may go in another state. But don't think that they stopped because that they didn't get through. Don't think that was going to prohibit them, because you'd be mistaken if you thought that, right? Matter of fact, they talking about how the judge blocked Florida's Stop Woke Act. And that's what they call it, the Stop Woke Act. That was pushed by DeSantis, one who's going to be running for president. Okay? So, when they talk about state-sanctioned racism, think about that, state-sanctioned. Have Black Americans, FBA, ADOS, Indigenous, Indigenous, have we been living under state sanction? What about in federal sanction? Have we been living under that all this time? According to what I've read through my history learning of this country, they have admitted that they have. Matter of fact, if you go read, you'll find that it's right there in legislation of the thing that they claim they did, but they didn't. Maybe I'll show you, maybe I won't. But they say state-sanctioned racism, meaning if the states collaborate and push this to be part of the curriculum statewide, nationwide, their defense is they saying this is state-sanctioned. As if like Jim Crow was not state sanctioned. Was red line state sanctioned? Was a lot of things we went through state sanctioned or federal sanction or sanction in itself. So sanction is saying state authority, state warrant, state legalization, state permission, state allowance, state consent, state ratify, state bind, state vote for, state not of approval. So far the court has struck it down and said, no, that would be discrimination. It's really like playing, you ever play draw four? Yeah, Mr. Blows Your Mind, a lot of times your analogies, they're not like really adult stuff. Well, because I as simple as possible so that I don't lose nobody. You understand what I'm saying? So you ever play draw four and you had reverse and it's two people. So there's only two people. That's the way it look like here, right? It's them and us. Everybody else, they under some other kind of immigration. Now they got some other kind of paper they can deal with them. But when it comes to us and them, it's like two people playing Uno. So when you playing Uno with two people, and let's just say by chance you have got 6 straight reverses, draw fours, right? And them say the last 8 cards you got 3, you got 4 reverse or 5 reverse and 3 draw fours. You finna go out the game just like that, right? So basically when you got one-on-one playing with Uno, the other person, you use reverse to get it right back in your hand. Isn't that what they did when they use state-sanctioned racism? Or if the state do it, it's discrimination against us. But prior before we can't get nothing, and it go right back into the hand of the one that was already state-sanctioning originally with us. And so now you get to say state-sanctioned, so then it's like laying down a reverse card, 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 draw 4, draw 4, draw. Yeah, everything keep me discombobulated. So that I'm getting more cards and you getting your hand up and you gonna win the game. Ain't that something? And see, we got a lot of our people out here. That's why this is the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. You do this, no one is going to take the news and let us sit here. Let's see and figure out what they talking about. Now, this is older news. But don't think it's not coming back around. Somebody gonna else reintroduce it. But what happens if this individual, what happens if this individual here, due to the time that we're talking about right now, right? What if that individual right there becomes president? Hey, you sitting here watching the video. Why you sitting there? Put your hand on that like button, click it, thumbs it up, share this video, comment. You can like or dislike it. We don't care about that. And also, if you ain't over here and subscribe, what you waiting on? Get yourself over there and subscribe to get on up to WeUpReport so you can stay up, because we going to keep you up. That's how you help keep this channel going. You can also do some monetary donations. We'll tell you about that later. But right now, wake yourself up, like, share, and comment. And don't forget, when you subscribe on that button, hit that put all notifications. You know how YouTube get down.
You know I need some money, gotta get the money, cause I need some cash. Hey, come on, gotta get it. You know I need the money, gotta get the money, cause I need some cash. Hey, come on, gotta get it.
And so now that we are using these venues to, some of us, to have these dialogues, to take the things that they say and put it and present it, some people don't like it. They don't like the fact that we're sitting here and, again, they're the way that they defended against saying becoming awake, they say woke. And they say stop wokeness. Correct? They were talking about stop wokeness. So they had a campaign to stop wokeness. Why would a person want you to stay asleep? Ask yourself, why would somebody want you to stay asleep? If you stay asleep, I can beat you all day long. I can do all kind of things while you sleep. As long as you in that comatose state, in that dreamlike state, then the things that I have been doing that you have not known I've been doing and been getting away with comes to cease if you wake up. So if you wake up, it's easier to win a race when you have no competition, when you're only one. It's like saying, when you watch old cartoons, at least back in the days when we were coming up, you So, I wanted to lay that out there for you because a lot of people had missed that with the DeSantis. So I'm kind of, it's a little longer, but I had did something earlier. So my thing is this. Why is your history considered to be about let's put it this way. Your history has a truth to it that agitates everybody. And so they don't want it to be known, they don't want it to be taught, and they want us to forget about it. But yet you have done nothing to rectify it. How does that work? And as we keep going on, as time keep going into the future, what happens if we don't take and do our due diligence and for the next generations to come and for them to keep that going? Is it to forget about it? And then what happens when you're in a country of fugitiveness, right? Because remember, those who have read that Bible, remember when Cain got banished and he went to the land of fugitiveness, right? Seems like that's what the United States is kind of like the land of fugitiveness. To take everybody who running from where they coming from and they come up under here, and then what they do is some of them, not all of them, Some of them have some disdains and come here and say some of the most heinous things. They say we not worthy. They talk about all the things about back home, but a lot of them been kicked out. They here by asylum. They seeking asylum. Either they run as refugees. They got some kind of history, but they don't never talk about that part. They only want to tell you like they here, like they've been good. Well, we know that we stood our ground and we do our fight, but you can't have that with other people who don't see it just like we do. So you've seen people come here running for positions of politicians who will CRT as part of their campaign strategy. I seen a dude, I think it was in Michigan. I think he was from a Nigerian. I seen a Jamaican that was running, that was in Virginia. They were talking, right? So these people don't have the same outlook as how we do. So if we don't maintain and keep that, we'll end up having to lose it. And then our descendants and children, they're going to lose it too. So let me give you this last bit of history that they did when we talking about, because you know they just got rid of that about the abortion, right? But let me show you how they was implementing that and who they was really targeting when they was doing it in the beginning. There was a letter that came out back in 1939. This is not long, but check this out real quick. Just to show you why the truth of our history is offensive. You might be able to read it on your screen. You may not, but I've already read it. You need to go back and rewind and listen to it. You can. Now again, all right, that was the extermination letter that was written in December 10th of 1939. And as you see that this was addressed to a particular person, C.J. Gamble. I'm not sure if that's part of the Gamble and Proctor. I'm not sure if they associated with them or the person. There's some research couldn't find that, but it's a possibility. May not be, but that's just my opinion on that, right? So anyway, this letter is being addressed to him, in particular about a situation that this person here is sending, inquiring as to the development, the agenda, and so forth, as you heard me read. And as you heard, that they have several people who are put in position are going to help facilitate this. Him being one, he has a part, a person that is visiting her, and then there's a person who's already on the ground, right? And then there's organizations, and then they're going to use people of professions, and they have a particular agenda that she is focused on, according to what is stated in this letter. So accordingly, she finds out that the woman that she is having to use as an article. Now, you know that Malcolm talked about how the apparatus of propaganda is being used to manipulate history, as well as the propaganda, how news do what it do. So we can see that this facet is going to be used to facilitate agenda of mind to get the people to participate willfully. So in this drafting stages, we see that this individual here is going to receive money, as she stated, $250. So we're talking about in 1939. All right, y'all. I didn't give you the letter. So I didn't even read the letter to you. So let me go ahead and read the letter to you, because for some odd reason, there's some funny stuff happening over here, but it is what it is. But that don't mean I can't go live, because I'm doing it right now. All right, so the letter goes like this. It's a letter that's going to be given, and I'll tell you who it is at the end. It's addressed to Dr. C.J. Gamble. And it says, "Dear Dr. Gamble, it's good to know that you are recovering. I also am stepping up and have felt much better than past week. Miss Delp was here for Thanksgiving, and I am more than delighted to learn that she was able to get $600 or $250 from the California Birth Control Organization, plus $600 from the Federation. That's good. She is a go-getter and a live wire, very tactful and charming as well. I think that my pick of her has been justified, even though she is a little higher priced than the ordinary. She has been working on this article to be written by Miriam DeFord. They were good enough to send me a rough draft for comments and suggestions. And the important suggestion that I made was not to include Ms. Delp's actual name in the article, because of that fact that her sister is married to one of the high spots in the Farm Security Department, and if the enemy starts to work on her name, they might make it difficult for this to go along the lines. Otherwise, I think the article is good. As to my sending a suggestion to the Federation, I think it is really, so let me put this away. Okay, right there. I think it's really unfair for me to do so. I am too far away to come and have this personal contact on the difference of reactions and only the holdup of any definite project to have the pros and cons, but about which makes for more chaos and confusion. Okay, so let me get this other part here. And I had already read this, and you were supposed to get that then, but I noticed that some odd reason that didn't come up. So I'm just going to do it to you live in effect. So, okay, I got it up here. All right, so here's the second. This is it's 3 parts of the letter. The last part is nothing. So there's only one thing that I would like to be in touch with, and that is the Negro Project of the South, which if the execution of the draft remains in Miss Rose's hands, my suggestion will not be confusing because she knows the way my mind works. Miss Rose sent me a copy of your letter on December 5th, and I note that you doubt it's worthwhile to employ a full-time Negro physician. It seems to me from my experience where I have been in North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas, that while the colored Negroes have great respect for white doctors, they can get closer to their own member and more or less lay their card on the table, which means their ignorance, superstitions, and doubts. They do not do this with the white people, and if we can train the Negro doctor at the clinic, he can go among them with enthusiasm, with knowledge, which I believe will have far-reaching results among the colored people. His work, in my opinion, should be entirely with the Negro profession and the nurse, hospital, social workers, as well as the county white doctor. His success will be dependent upon his personality and his training by us. The minister work is also important and also should be trained, perhaps by the Federation, as to our ideal and the goal that we have hoped to reach. We do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that ideal if it ever occurs to any of them more rebellious members. I agree with you that Miss Rose has done a remarkable job in thinking through the planning project, but she has worked on it for some time. As soon as I knew there was a possibility of getting any money, I put her at work drafting the plan for Mr. Lackner. She is excellent at just such a job. She hangs on the details, weaves and correlates them into the design. I shall never cease to have the utmost respect for her. So I'm going to give you the last part to it, and then let me tell you how my assessment, so you can understand why I gave you this. Again, remember, this is about history and why they don't want to teach our history and why our history is so damn offensive. Admiration and regards for the ability, and we for I have not been with anyone in the Federation who could take her place. There's nobody in this Federation who could take her place. I am constantly delighted at this and that you're getting better. And now we must pray for Miss Time, who is seriously ill in the doctor's hospital in New York. My regards to your Sarah and yourself. Sincerely yours, Margaret Sanger. Okay, now that's Margaret Sanger's letter in 1939 to Dr. Gamble. Okay, that's what that is. Now you can hear what I'm saying. All right, that was the extermination letter that was written in December 10th of 1939. And as you see that this was addressed to a particular person, C.J. Gamble. I'm not sure if that's part of the Gamble and Proctor. I'm not sure if they associated with them or the person. There's some research, couldn't find that. But it's a possibility, may not be. But that's just my opinion on that, right? So anyway, this letter is being addressed to him, in particular about a situation that this person here is sending, inquiring as to the development, the agenda, and so forth, as you heard me read. And as you heard, that they have several people who are put in position are going to help facilitate this. Him being one, he has a part, a person that is visiting her, and then there's a person who's already on the ground, right? And then there's organizations, and then they're going to use people of professions, and they have a particular agenda that she is focused on, according to what is stated in this letter. So accordingly, she finds out that the woman that she is having to use as an article. Now, you know that Malcolm talked about how the apparatus of propaganda is being used to manipulate history, as well as the propaganda, how news do what it do. So we can see that this facet is going to be used to facilitate agenda of mind to get the people to participate willfully. So in this drafting stages, we see that this individual here is going to receive money. As she stated, $250. So we're talking about in 1939, $250 would be considered a lot of money of that particular time. And I don't know how long of work this is, how long it took her to do what she's doing, but she also got some money from what she stated in the letter, as you heard me read, the California Birth Control Organization. Now this is 1939. California Birth Control Organization. Birth control has been around for some time in this country, right? A lot of people know about Margaret Sanger, and then some people do not know that also that Bill Gates' father was the heir apparent. Well, let me say that one more again. That Bill Gates, yes, Bill Gates' father is also the heir apparent to after Margaret Sanger. So does it make sense of his role today and how they use philanthropy? But that's another topic for another situation or another video. Now, also, not just the $250 that they received from the California Birth Control Organization, they got another $600 from the Federation. Now, I don't know who this Federation is. Federation. So go ahead, so just in case of those who didn't catch it, they're just now coming in and seeing the letter for itself. You might be able to read it on your screen, you may not, but I've already read it. You need to go back and rewind and listen to it, you can. Now again, these are the receipts, so nobody's saying that I'm making this up. And again, as Malcolm said, our history is not hate speech. Our history is just what it is and what people have done. And the revealing, for those who do not know, and I know many people who don't want people to hear this, but it's here because people are talking about Roe versus Wade and how this has been an agenda. And to see that you have Maxine Waters, I seen a video where it's showing her saying that they want black women to get out here by the thousands and the hundreds of thousands to protest. I understand that women saying that they have the right to their own body. I'm not here to dispute that. We're talking about the detriment that abortions have caused we as the black Americans, and I know some people are going to have a problem when I say black, but that's who we are known as and we have identified with. I'm not talking about going into court proceeding. I'm not talking about being registered to be affiliated with indigenousness. I'm just talking about that which is a colloquial term that we all have encompassed at some one point or another. Those who try to say that black is a color and because of that you can't be identified. But I'm just saying what the general mass understanding knowing when we identify who we're talking about. So anyway, with that being said, the Federation, I don't know who the Federation is, but she does mention the Federation several times. Right? So who is this mysterious federation? And what does it have? As Aldous Huxley talked about, there are powers and institutions that sit in behind that are the puppet masters to facilitate agendas. So we see it, this letter, whether this letter is kind of like the Willie Lynch letter. Some people say that it's not real and others will say it's real. Some people may say this is a fabricated letter, it really didn't exist. And for those who are taking to say it is what it is. But there's a federation that's being mentioned here. And they're also contributing $600, which is basically almost 3 times the world money that the California organization gave, right? So that was 2 times and then, some, right? 200 was 250 times 2 was 500, extra 100 on top of that, right? So that's another half, a little more than half. right? So 2.5 times what she got originally from the California California Birth Control Organization. So this is about $850 in the time of 1939. I'm pretty sure that's a lot of money for the work that is being done. So now again, her job, this Mrs. Delp, is to get in to make an article. Now, what paper is this going to be circulated in that is going to, we don't know where this is. Is this a general publication, or are they specific as to who they're targeting? But we know, as to get more into this letter, she is specific as to who she is targeting. So it goes on and talks about making sure that there's anonymity in her, not to reveal who she is, because she has a connection through the marriage of her sister, who is in a high spot that's in a farm security department. And if it reveals who she is, they can connect the dots to who he is, and they may foil the plan. So this goes to show you the layers that when people are conniving against us, it's never just what you see. There are different tentacles on this octopus. It's never just what you see. You see the octopus head, but you don't see the 8 tentacles of his arms and how many reach and the directions he is coming from. So when these agendas are taking place, never take it to assume, or never to assume that it is just that which sometimes they reveal or get caught and they give you a patsy, but it may be other people involved as well. We're now almost, what did it be, about 90, less than 90, that's about 83 years, about 83 years ago from 1939. So how far has this reach of implication of this design? And then they tell you the numbers of 20 million plus of our black children have been aborted through the apparatus which they constructed back then. And then they're going to tell you the people who helped to facilitate that, because it wasn't, they cannot, see, the thing is, she tell you some things that we have to look at. And we talking about today. We're in 2020 today, or 2022 today. This is 1939 then, but we've been trained. And then I hear a lot of our people who are out here, who are advocates, who love their work, I love what they're doing as into their spirit and their heart, but I don't understand how you can blame your own people about their ignorance, about their mistrust, because they've been conditioned. We've been conditioned a long time, and the people, again, who we trust because we think they have their best interest, and then we see that the enemy uses these same people to facilitate their agenda for them, whether it be willing or unwilling by them, or unknowing by them. So again, it goes on. So they want to make sure that she's autonomous, and that they have 2 people. There's a Miss Delph, who's going to go and use the apparatus of propaganda through media or some kind of venue of magazine or newspaper. And then they have somebody who's on the ground, who's Miss Rose, right? Miss Rose is on the ground being amongst the people who she has a particular, her scope particular is on a particular focus. And she, as you heard me read, her focus is where? Right? Her focus is on the South. Now, you're thinking about 1939 at this particular time. You do have the Great Migration is in effect. Those who are leaving the South are now starting to migrate and come from the South and coming. But primarily at this particular time, you still have the crux of black Americans still in the South. So her focus is on, we want this, my focus is on these particular people entirely, right? So she goes on and she talks about how this woman is perfect for her, and that she's kind of like her right-hand man. Her mind is in sync with her, so any suggestions and thoughts that she come up would be just like her, because she understands the way she thinks. So this is like her representation, even though she's not there, right? And so she goes on and she talks about how, again, she doesn't want to really have her hands involved. She got somebody representing her, as in the newspaper. She has somebody down on the ground amongst black folks who's representing her. She got the individual who she's corresponding with as representing her, and then she should be the one for the federation. But she says, well, I'm too far away and it wouldn't be right. So she kind of gives a little excuse why she shouldn't do it, right? And then she kind of reveals that by her representing this action, it wouldn't go well. What does she mean by that? She means that sometimes those who understand the game know that we cannot have white people saying certain things that's supposed to be pertaining to we as black people, because then it looks suspicious. Why this individual saying the stuff that they're saying, or why you setting up this kind of agenda, when we really know that they go get the puppets, the ones we have identified, that a lot of people say that are sellouts and coons and so forth. This is why they're in this position. And this letter shows you that what we've been saying is not something we made up. These are the things that are facts and true, whether those that we can identify or not. But I've heard that there's some books that should be revealed about certain people who are what they consider the dirty and the good side. Now, I don't know whether it be more or not, but they said there's books that's going to reveal those who have been against us all this time, right? And the time will come when all that will be exposed. But according to as this letter says, you can see the dynamic has always been there. How else can you infiltrate a people? Because when you look at the dynamic of color, everybody say, well, I don't want to be black, and I don't want to be white. But when you look at black and white people, it's like uniforms. I get to see you, you get to see me, and I can identify you right away. So it would be hard, just like when you think about COINTELPRO, to have white people down the surveillance and black people, because it would be easy to identify. When I see a white man in a uniform, I know he's police. Or if I see a white man hanging in the black community, automatically my ADT supposed to go up and tell me, you know what? That's 5-0. That's 5-0. That's Popo. That's the man. So what did they have to do? They had to get people from amongst us who will infiltrate us, that would make your ADT become less offensive, and they look like you. So that's what we got in our minds. Black is black. So that's why today we have a hard time discerning who is black. And I don't mean about color. Now, those who ain't never been black, you think it's all about your color. It has nothing to do with that. Mind and spirit and body. You understand? Got nothing to do about no color. That's those who trying to, again, your ideology from the institution and schools you come from. This is the jurisdictions of what you talking about. Fine. Those who don't come out of those schools, those who, again, from the common man knowledge, the unlettered people, the way we identify is how what we see is how we deal with, right? So when we say black, we don't mean black by no color. We know what we're talking about. But what happened is that this country has, again, they use the term of melting pot. Melting pot also with black has been melted, because we have people from all around the geographical locations of this world who have melted in amongst us, and now many of us can't even discern who is who. We can hear people talk and still don't understand who they are. We can ask them certain questions and we seem to never get to the right answer. So many of us are confused, but not all of us. There's some of us who still got that discerning eye to know who's who and who's not. And that's how they've been always infiltrating us in that form and fashion, as this letter is showing. So again, she doesn't want to go down to be identified, so she's going to have a representative. And she thinks that it would be better because it would represent you as the individual and the people who you are down and with. So again, her focus point was about the Negro Project, right? The Negro Project. This is something you can go Google up, read the research on it, see if this is something that, again, does this letter substantiate? Was this something that was real and tangible? Or this is something fictitious that they want us to believe, that this is a conspiracy, that it was really never real? But today, in 2022, after they done sat here now, after allow 50 years or more, 50 years for Roe versus Wade to kill. Think about, that's a half a century worth of killing. I'm not saying that it was only just our people, but that's 50 years of killing. That's 50 years of straight killing that they allow. Again, I seen a sister on a video who said that only rights that they ever gave was you given the right to kill your own child. They gave you that right. They allow you to have that one because that one does what? That one may mar your soul. That may put a blemish on your record. We talk about a standing before the Almighty, right? So your ignorance could have played into it because, again, this was a game that was being facilitated by people who had an agenda. But because the agenda is kind of backfired, and then now they're seeing, as we go on more into this show, I'm going to show you that, you know what? It may have backfired on them. And this may be a blessing in disguise for we, because now we're going to have to tighten it up. You can't be out here loose and just, you know, what they say, sex for sport. You can't be out here sexing for sport anymore. You're going to have to be a little bit more consensual and responsible and getting to know people, the old courting and dating and getting to know and knowing that if I want to do this. Now, there's going to be some of us who are going to be still out here slinging it for sport. But then the system has got things in its apparatuses that's going to make this become a nightmare for many who do not have control. There will be others that will have to use this in another form or way that may be criminal. So there's a lot of dynamics involved in this that they call about this rolling wave. But anyway, so she's focusing on the Negro Project of the South, and she's talking about the execution of the details. Whatever the details between her and this Miss Rose, how they worked out, and what they're going to implement, and who they're going to use, how they're going to do it, what's the projection of what they wanted, and as time goes on, they got it down to the details. That's telling you that these people work in a way that is, when they say think tanks, when they're talking about having people working together to figure out what's their problem. So we're going to use this like chess. While you're out there being, again, distracted, watching football and watching housewives and being distracted, these people are sitting down playing chess, mapping it out, figuring out, knowing you, and doing the things that they believe you will react and will respond to, and try to get the outcome to which they want. Again, we didn't have a world assassination tip. The world has had a world assassination tip, but you didn't recognize it as that. You see it as something different, right? But anyway, this is going on. That's another topic for another time. But anyway, so the execution of the details, they still remain with her. They're in her hands because she's the one that is going to go amongst these people and facilitate them and make sure that they know to the detail, to the letter, to the period, to the comma, to the explanation point, right? To the indentation. This is the way we need you to do this, right? And again, this letter is going to go ahead and tell you everybody who's involved, right? And you know how they say sometimes somebody's the right person for the right job? She believed that this Miss Rose was that person, right? Now, she also corresponds and goes back and said that, well, her suggestion about how we can facilitate this better amongst them is, well, she said, well, why don't we get a black doctors? Why don't we use black doctors for them? Well, the individual here, the C.J. Gamble, was like, he didn't believe that the Negro doctor would be useful. His understanding was that, well, they're not as knowledgeable as a white doctor. But then she's telling you, and this is how you know, like those who might have seen how they did the infiltration in Africa. There's a video or I think it's a video, and it's showing how the Livingston, I think his name was Livingston, and how he went into Africa and he was able to write the routes, what people look like, and he was an infiltrator. He was using his eyes and ears and writing and jotting down. And this is how they were getting to learn about the interior of Africa. So the same thing here, when you look at here, she's telling him the reason why she believed in use a black doctor. She's saying that, well, the black doctor, right, by her observation and being around Negroes, because she started talking about places that she'd been. She said North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee. So she said, my experience tells me that it's not that black people don't respect white doctors, but there's still apprehension between white doctors and black patients because you're white. And so there's some things that you will not confide in me because, again, really, as history has told us, do we really trust them? So again, strategy, again, sitting those who stratagem, and again, the think tanks say, well, what would make them more, it's like taking old medicine when you're a child. Sometimes you got to disguise it in something so that the child would take it. So the same thing here is with adults. How do we disguise what we really are trying to do? Because remember, she's going to tell you exactly what they're going to do or they're trying to do. And so what she says is, so I'm suggesting that we use black physicians and let this black physician be the eyes, the ears, and the representative of us and our agenda. Because why? He's just like them. He's a part of them. He looks like them. They accept him because they think that he has the best interest for them. Let me say that again. They believe that he has the best interest for them because everything of my skin is my kin, the way you thought at that particular time. And that what is good for the goose is good for the gander. But did not realize that a lot of them were not for our best interest and at best at heart. And again, you could be used as a tool and unbeknownst and not known. So it goes always. It's not always just a one way. And so a black doctor will be trained by them, and the training that they're going to give him. And I think about it like this. The training that they're trained the doctor is going to be the one that's going to infiltrate amongst the black people and facilitate an agenda that he is taught, that is told that is correct. Do I need to say that one more again? He's going to be trained. He's going to be trained. Now think about training. Where you go to get trained at? In this letter, he's being trained by a clinic. But we're talking about our people in general. Where do you go to get trained? You go to the university. You go to the colleges. You go to, right? And you get your degrees. And so the same subscription, right? Or prescription that is being prescribed here, can it not be also done in other facets of other agendas? So you go to the institution already got this set up a way, they already got it designed for the inner workings and outer workings that they designed it for. I train you, you take it amongst your people, you facilitate it, you become the representative of us, and our agenda is being fruitioned. Oh, you ain't hearing me though. Huh? And so they believe that if you get black, it's more comfortable and you'll be more revealing. Right? Isn't that some people who believe that if you have a black doctor, that the black doctor got the best interest, so you confide in him. Yeah, doctor, I got pain here, this, and that. Yeah, this, and that. So you're revealing a lot of things of your comfortability being with a person who is like self. But that's really a defense. That's really breaking down your ADT, your defense mechanism, because again, you believe he's there for your best interest, but he may be in the disguise working for somebody else, even but unbeknownst to his own self. Now, this is not me trying to make you not believe in doctors. I'm just saying, according to this letter, and then when we look at the totality of how our history being entailed in this country and what has happened, right? So anyway, right, they believe that she says that is our ignorance. Right? The ignorances, the superstitions and doubts that we have. No, it is the things that we question. Those are the things that we'll say, wait a minute. So I'm going to go to you and so that we can get rid of my baby. And this is birth control. And really? Now remember, she talks about how that, no, I won't go there yet. I won't go there. So anyway, right? So again, your ignorance, superstition, and doubt, because he is black, you will confide in him. You reveal to him, and through the training that they gave him, he will ease your mind. Because of his white coat and his stethoscope and that degree on the wall, makes him knowledgeable and knowable. Because remember that she talked about that he goes in there with enthusiasm. Going there enthusiasm. So that means he's coming in high spirit, confident, knowing what he's talking about. So you believe, well, he went to school, he's a doctor. The white man wouldn't have gave him that degree if he didn't know what he was doing. So I trust in you. So guess what? Any doubts, superstitions, and they say your ignorance is really not really ignorance. It is your ADT questioning that some of them things in this square peg is not fitting in this round hole. Right? That's what they saying. That's what she's saying, right? So she goes on to say the reason why she think it would be more useful for a black doctor is because she say blacks don't reveal to whites the truth. Let me say that one more again. Blacks don't reveal the truth to whites. There used to be a time. Again, it's not about hate. It's not about being discriminative. It's just that we from different worlds. We live under different circumstances. And those who have been facilitated some of the things that have been detrimental to us in history have looked like you. And so when you talk about experiments and some of the things that institutions and governments have put, so we have to always have to be apprehensive. So a white doctor still kind of represents that, even though he's in the capacity in the facility and as a profession, may not trust him. Yeah, it's like a child coming in to the doctor and to give him a lollipop after he done stuck him. He done stuck you, but he gave you a lollipop afterward. But he done got what he wanted out of you, and you do, okay, and he make the pain go away. He gives you a sucker. Ain't that something? A sucker of all things, they give you the damn sucker. So anyway. So again, he becomes a representative of them, right? And the fact that he's going to take now what we train him, he's going to train the nurses, he's going to train the hospital, he's going to train the social workers, and she also threw in the caveat of those white doctors who are of the county. Let me say that again. That's like a virus getting inside, and he's going to infiltrate all the other things, so there'll be a cahoots, right? There's going to be a cahoots. So if you end up talking to a nurse, she's going to facilitate. You talking to a social worker, she's going to facilitate the same information. If it's happen to be a white doctor that you may still go to, that you may not have a black doctor, he's going to regurgitate the same thing too. And so that means that its synchronicity makes you believe that what they saying must be true, because they wouldn't all be saying it. But you don't understand the background, how they're working. Oh, okay. Right? And so now the success is going to be based on how the responsible of this doctor and how he does his job by getting everybody else on sync, and the way that we train him to make that what we trying to do goes to everything following exactly to the T. Again, as she spoke earlier about Miss Rose and the details that she's holding. Then she goes on and talks about the ministers will be trained by the Federation. Again, we don't know who the Federation is. Who is this secret Federation that was in cahoots with this woman here who's writing about, again, as I'm going to reveal to you that what she said. Okay? So this Federation will train the ministers. The doctor will be trained by the clinic, and the minister who will be, because why? Ministers, the church, well, you can say reverend, ministers, pastor, whatever you want to call it. He has a church. The church is part of the community. Community got the people in it. He's the leader of the flock. So that means that he can lead. He can inculcate, right? he gets the head, which is the man, and the woman will follow as well as the children. That means he's encompassing everyone and everything, those who are part of the church. And we're talking about 1939. We were probably more church going then than we are now. So she goes on and she talks about how that the minister's job is to make sure that the ideal and goals out our reach. Right? So that means that you have black ministers and preachers, because it's kind of funny that some people may not know, and I don't say this to be a knock, but I think, everybody gets beat. You know what I'm saying? No, I mean, that's part of learning as you get older. You get beat, and being beat means you learn from somebody beating you. So did you not know, for those who may not know, that Martin Luther King got he got an award for Margaret Sanger, man, from I guess it was the Project Negro or the Planned Parenthood. He received an award from them, Dr. Martin Luther King. Because why? As these ministers are being used to facilitate, and that's who were really promoting and pushing some of this about birth control. Okay? And so he has more than another job, because she said about a fear. She was saying the only fear that we got, because like now they have the black corner, they have the black media, right? Which that's who we are, right? The black media, the black corner. I say the corner that the builders rejected, right? That fear that she wrote in this letter was about there will be those amongst that flock who will question and say that we know that we're trying to exterminate. Remember, I didn't make that up. That was in the letter, right? They were trying to exterminate. Y'all, you remember that part when I read it? Or did I make that up? I did read that, right? Right? Exterminate them, right? And if it comes by word that they're being exterminated, there's going to be the rebellious ones amongst them who will get in the minds of the others, and it will make it harder. It's kind of like what happened when the virus hit, right? When the virus hit, there was those who, based on employment or being scared, or those who were just, accepting because they said, this is right thing to do, and it would help you to, lessen your chances. And then there was those who looked at it through a fine-tooth comb, understanding the processes and saying, hey, this may not be what they say it is. So you're going to always have the naysayers, and there's no naysayers, if they can reach, that's going to make a lot of people not do. And so you see, she said the fear is if this, if this gets out, that we're trying to exterminate the blacks. So it is the job of the minister, the pastor, the preacher, to counter those who question the agenda by the rebellious ones. Let me say that again. It is the job of the pastor, the minister of this particular time, and those who were participants of it, right? That their job was to counter those who would question the agenda and let the other ones who were kind of on the 50-50 line and start asking the pastor, well, they saying it's his job to counter that and make them more acceptable, and don't listen to that. Kind of like fact check. Fact check doesn't approve it and mean it cannot be true. So we see this has been worked a long time. And this is a letter, not just something that I made up. I'm showing you where I got it from. So take it for what you want. Look at it as history, and we'll move on.
White people are really frightened. If you don't understand the destruction of Planned Parenthood offices, and you don't understand the wall that we're going to build on the southern border of the United States, you haven't read the book, The Birth Dearth by Ben Wattenberg. Ben Wattenberg was a brilliant Jewish man who was a member of the American Enterprise Institute, and he wrote a book, the first paragraph of which says, "The main problem confronting the United States today is there aren't enough white babies being born in this country." He was an advisor to presidents of the United States. He wrote the book in 1987. He says if we don't change this and change it rapidly, white people will lose their numerical majority in this country, and this will no longer be a white man's land. Now, I'm not misrepresenting this. I'm telling you exactly, almost exactly what he says. He says there are three things we can do to solve this. Number one, we could pay women to have babies, as they have been doing in Western European nations for years. Then he says, and these are his words, not mine, unfortunately, we would have to pay women of all colors to have babies, so we don't want to do that. He says the second thing we could do is increase the number of legal immigrants that are allowed into this country every year. Then once again he says, unfortunately, the vast majority of those wanting to come to this country today are people of color, so we don't want to do that. The third thing he says, and women had better pay attention to this, 60% of the fetuses that are aborted every year are white. If we could keep that 60% alive, that would solve our birth dearth. Does that sound like racism to you?
Hey, you sitting here watching the video. Why you sitting there? Put your hand on that like button, click it, thumbs it up, share this video, comment. You can like or dislike it. We don't care about that. And also, if you ain't over here and subscribe, what you waiting on? Get yourself over there and subscribe to get on up to WeUpReport so you can stay up, because we're going to keep you up. That's how you help keep this channel going. You can also do some monetary donations. We'll tell you about that later. But right now, wake yourself up, like, share, and comment. And don't forget, when you subscribe on that button, hit that put all notifications. You know how YouTube get down.
You know I need some money, gotta get the money, cause I need some cash. Hey, come on, gotta get it. You know I need the money, gotta get the money, cause I need some cash. Hey, come on, gotta get it.
All right, so that's probably going to be for my show tonight. Want to thank each and every one of you who stayed to the end. I thank each and every one of you. And nobody there ain't no comments. I was actually going to open the phone line, but I think I'm already at 2 hours or so. A lot of y'all probably like, what is it I just seen here? Well, what I showed you had to do a lot with the theme, which is about your history. Now, you could be not FBA, ADOS, FBA, indigenous, and all that. You could be of another persuasion of another people. But the history is what the history is, and it pertains to all of us, but in particular, it deals with we as Black Americans in this country. So, there's a lot of information on two things, just about how they try to construct a bill and why it is in somebody's best interest to do what? To try to regulate, restrict it so that other people who don't know really about the Black American experience, that if you do start to learn about it, we want to taint it, or I ain't gonna say taint it, but we want to water it down in such a way that people don't look at us in that same light. It's kind of like, again, like I said, the Queen Elizabeth. Some people are mourning because of their relationship or belovedness to us, and other people are looking at it from a historical way in the family and the inheritance that you receive, and part of that you get because being along and being in that bloodline. And so some people will like to try to block that off. So we just have to say, well, why is our history so detrimental to so many people, and that we in this need to be lawful in order for us to be taught it or to teach it or to speak about it? That's because just as I showed some of the things I just showed here, and that was really nothing. It's really just two parts. I mean, if I really was to put some things together, it could get a lot more heinous than that. But in itself, just let you know how long people have been doing the things they have been doing. And when you hear Black Americans, Indigenous, ADOS, FBA, Natasha the Indigenous talk about their history and those things pertaining to it, it's not hate. It's just the history. And if you never rectified those histories and never did anything to, make amends, not even there's been no apology. Even though they will make it look like an apology, and I may do that on another show, is to show you they never really did apologize. But they will make it seem like they did. If you understand how the process works for bills and laws, you'll see that they didn't do anything. Actually, we're going to have it on this one, but it somehow didn't get uploaded, so that's what it is. So, again, I want to thank each and every one of y'all for coming here. I don't know if they've been kicking y'all out and you've been coming back in because it kind of fluctuates with 3 and 4. That's fine. But again, I am the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. Matter of fact, did you see at the end of Jane Elliott? For those of you who might be questioning, like, Mr. Blow Your Mind, I hear you know what I'm saying? I kind of look and say, yeah, you have been over 10 years over here. Did you see at the end of after Jane Elliott spoke? Did you see I showed you what I said back in 2014? Did you see that it had 276,000 views? That's when they put me out of business. It was called the extinction of the white race. That was 8 years ago. The coming catastrophe of what's happening now, I told 8 years ago. So if you've seen the end, you've seen that I showed you my video. And after that, I was doing many, but then they took me out of business. I can't get 100 views. I don't even think I had 1,000 views at that time. And hit the 275, which would be considered, I guess on YouTube, you say viral. Because nobody in the black corner ever go viral. But I went viral. Not once, but several. And I probably have more banned videos that went global banned that can't be played nowhere than anybody. That's just me talking. So again, appreciate y'all for being here. Again, this is the most hated show in the black corner. Yeah, no daddy. No, we're gonna get up out of here. How about this? I can do this just in case. Maybe somebody got some questions they may want to ask. You want to call in? I can do that. Let's see. I'm gonna give you an opportunity. Somebody might want to call in. Let's see. I'll put up about 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Get somebody they want. If you decide you want to call in, here's the number for you: 262-922-8755. You got anything that you want to talk about? Anything I just showed? You got some questions about anything? Here's your opportunity. We don't do this all the time, but we're doing what we're doing. So if not, if that be the case, if the phone don't ring, then I know that is what it is. Otherwise, I'm getting myself together, situated, so I can start having people come on and be on the show. And it won't be as long, but I just have certain topics and we'll just kind of do that and just go along. So, see, nobody's going to call. Nobody's putting nothing in the comment, right? So it's all good. So, as we get up out of here, I'll be looking out for tomorrow's show. Tomorrow's show going to be pretty good because there's some things that have been put out here that ain't nobody in the corner touching, but we going to touch it. So, let's go ahead and do that. Then we'll see you on the next show. Till then, y'all, to the next show.
Remember, the enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives. Destroy the image, and you will break the enemy.